Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I am Tamara Johnson Shealey. Good morning. It is Friday, February 22nd. It's the last Friday of Black History Month. OMG, February is gone. It's gloomy here in Georgia, so I figured I'd be a little sunshine. I'm all bright and colorful today. And as you know, for Black History Month, I have been wrapping my head all month long in celebration of Black history and all the contributions of beauty that we, as Black and brown women, we could not wear our hair. So I am wrapping my hair for Black History Month. So let's see where my trusty co-hosts are this morning. Again, I am Tamara Johnson Shealey. Let's see who's here. Oh, let's see. There she is. Miss Robby's here. Good morning, Robby.
Good morning, Tamara.
How are you? Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm always happy to be here. Always happy to see you. You are sunshine. Enjoy.
Oh, thank you. I'm all bright and colorful today. I'm like, you know what? We need a little sunshine here in Georgia. It's been raining for a week.
It's not just your outfit. Your personality is very giving.
Thank you. Let's see where David is this morning.
Right.
Let's see. There he is.
Hello.
David,
How are you?
morning.
Hi, Tamara. Hi, Robby.
Hi, David.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, David. How have you been?
Oh, I've been fine. I've been cleaning myself out and cleaning my house. So I'm in good shape.
Awesome. Well, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. We have a guest this morning. We've been talking about the New Deal. We left off our last conversation with you and Robby. I wasn't on the broadcast, but I was behind the scenes. That broadcast was awesome. So we have Mr. Patrick Thompson, who's going to join us this morning, and we're going to talk about we're going to continue that conversation about the Green New Deal. Good morning, Patrick.
Hey, good morning.
How are you? Welcome to the broadcast.
Hey, we're doing great. I'm outside at Kelmy Crazy this morning. Speaking of green, speaking of cleansing, Dave, cleansing.
Bring your microphone around closer to you so we can hear you just a little clearer, Patrick. Yeah. So
turn it up.
Yeah, David, we were talking about the green. You and Robby were talking about the Green New Deal last week. David?
I'm getting a little confused here about who's talking and who's not. Yeah. Well, let's hear what Patrick has to say. I mean, I'm very interested in that he's actually working and organizing around the Green New Deal. And I brought up some of my skepticism last week about using the term New Deal, because it has a lot of implications that most people don't know about racial privilege and exclusion from the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. So we really need to hear about how this Green New Deal is going to address the issues that were unresolved in the old New Deal. So,
Patrick.
All right. Hey, I'll start off. So one of the things I'm working on right now is take the mystique around the New Deal away. You're right, Paul, in that using the word New Deal has connotations to the old New Deal. And we should leave that baggage behind. It's also attached to certain people. Like when you have Cortez around it, that excites, turns people off. When you have the governor of New York and you have de Blasio, people like that are behind this, but then it can push people away. So we want to leave that part of it behind, and let's just talk about what this New Deal would look like. So I'm working in part of that today. Here I am. I'm here in a conservative state like Georgia, where there's money available from the USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture. What's the number one industry in Georgia? Agriculture.
Right.
Okay, so if you look at where progressives are in this state, they are not in rural areas. That shows by the voting. The voting was in all the areas around metro and suburban Atlanta. Well, that's where people live who are farmers and they're rural and they may have a different set of standards, but they're very concerned about their energy use, just like they're concerned about their healthcare use. They don't have healthcare. They don't have hospitals. No one pays attention to them. So there's money at the USDA that's available, kind of like the money that's available for Medicare. But I don't have to go through the legislature to get that money. I don't have to go through a governor. I don't have to go through a president. The money is there. It's the same. It's very much the same as our Medicare system, where we're losing Medicaid money. I love paying for other states to have health care. We don't here. Well, here's an opportunity where there's money, there's billions available for us to take in the hinterland. What can I do with that? Well, I can go to a home, and it may be a double wide, and I can weatherize that, and I can put new efficient appliances in there, that sort of thing. The way we do that today is a lot of the electrical co-ops, which are around Georgia, which manage 50% of the electricity in Georgia, outside of Georgia Power. Most people don't know that. Georgia Power does mostly the cities and the urban areas. They provide power for that. But outside of Atlanta and outside of a few key cities, it's an electric co-op that provides that energy. Electric co-op buys from Georgia Power, but they're beholden, just like we are, to whatever Georgia Power wants to sell, whatever that energy mix is, however bad it is, and also how expensive it is. So that's why we're paying for Plant Vogtle, for example, because that's something they want to do, and we all have to pay for it. So the electric co-ops are owned by people, though. I'm a member of COBMC, so I'm trying to help COBMC take advantage of some of this money, because I can go to a low-income home. I can go to a place that, when you talk about social justice, I can go to a place that they're not buying energy efficiency. And you ask them, hey, I have these programs that, go to a co-op or go to Georgia Power, and they'll say, well, we have programs for the poor. We have stuff. You just go get a loan, and it'll be a low interest loan. You get a loan. As soon as you say that, that poor person goes, you don't understand. I can't even pay my energy bill, much less my FICO score is bad. How am I going to get a loan to get an energy saving device, an electric vehicle, or whatever you want me to push me to? I can't even go there. I can barely make my payments. My energy burden is high. And then Georgia Power will come back and say, but we have some of the lowest rates in the country. We have low energy rates. But what they don't understand is, but my house is built like a submarine with screen doors. Okay, it's really bad construction, and it's really not energy efficient. So there's money available to fix that energy efficiency in many of our low-income homes, and also anybody. And it can be attached to a renter. So imagine this is business. This is conservative business. So I own an apartment building. I'm a business. I could lower my rent by taking advantage of these fixes. When I get that USDA money, it stays with the building. It doesn't stay with, if people move in and out of the building, it doesn't move with them, it stays with the building. So imagine being able to market your building based on the fact that you have low energy rates. It's one of the things that people use to qualify for a house or qualify for living is, what are the utility rates? And if they can't afford it, then they can't rent or they can't buy. So that's directly at the intersection of social justice and good business practice. That, to me, I think, is where, whatever you want to call it, the Green Deal, that's where it's going, is how do I use these really good, innovative ideas and apply them in something that actually works. And it's a conservative idea. Comments? I lose you, Paul.
I like it. I see a lot of parallels between rural Georgia and in town. It's ironic that Georgia's an agricultural state, yet we have food deserts, in divested areas all in town. I'd love to, at some point, and thank you for expounding on that and making it simple. I do have one quick question. one, I'm not, what do you mean it's a conservative idea? And then separately, the Ocasio thing kind of, as an advocate, I get what you're saying to focus on it, but I also think that that's not that you're critiquing, but the fact that it's the association, because she's progressive, people don't want to associate, that just seems not ideal.
Okay, I don't know what got translated there, but what I'm saying is, even though she's come out with it and she's been trying to parade, she's been, promoting it.
Mm-hmm.
People should not have to attach it to her, is what I'm saying, because some people really like that, and some people are completely turned off. So
right.
So I can go over and I can turn Tamara off right now, and I can go over and listen to Fox News, and they are just wailing on this. They are, oh my God, socialism! Oh, here it comes! That they're taking over. These crazy people are taking over the country. It's giving them something to talk about. It's giving them something to fight. What I'm saying is, this is a conservative idea.
Mm-hmm.
What is not conservative about saving money? Okay, if I tell somebody, hey, your utility bill is going to be cut in half. What's so crazy about that? That's a good idea. It saves money. It saves money for business. It saves money for nonprofits, churches. It saves money for homeowners.
And I'm glad that Ocasio's pushing it, and it looks like it's almost a bipartisan situation, which is helpful to have allies on both sides. I wish people didn't drag into the personality factor, even though I'm not even sure that that's it. But as I'm in real estate, so I completely get what you're saying about the homes. I completely get what you're saying about marketability for apartment complexes. Right. We've got one around the corner where folks paid low rents but ridiculous amounts in utilities because the buildings were so inefficient. And I completely see a parallel between the credit factors, because the same folks in rural Georgia, and Egberto always says this, Appalachia and in-town divested areas, same thing. People do not have credit here. So to tell them to go get a loan or to go get training while they're not being paid for that training, people can't survive. It's the same. I totally get it.
Yes. Yeah. So that's, if you're in real estate, you understand that and what's going to change our habits. The original New Deal, we really had to campaign and convince people, hey, I'm telling you, Medicare for all or Medicare for the most. Let's take care of Medicare for young people and kids, and let's take care of it for old people. And then the people in the middle never got. The plan was to close that gap, and it never got closed because people just kept fighting it. And it wasn't people so much as industry. The healthcare industry was, oh no. Ronald Reagan used to have tea parties. Back then they were called coffee parties. They had coffee parties where Ronald Reagan was, before he was anything, was just an actor. They recorded him, and they would have tea parties, and it was for women because women didn't work, they stayed at home. And they would have these coffee parties. They would recruit you and have a coffee party. And Ronald Reagan they would put on a tape. Back then it was a tape or a record. And you would listen to the wise words that were written for Ronald Reagan to say about how bad Medicare is taking us down this evil socialism, communism road that we cannot handle that, whatever. Now later on he changed his tune, right? Because he realized, a lot of my constituency are seniors, and I did that as an actor. People don't separate, but it became a real change for him to say, and what the point I was making was, what really changed that was that the public, the consumers said, I want this. That's what's happening now with energy efficiency. People are saying it. Why would you drive an electric vehicle? Because I save money and I don't have to buy gas every day or every week. Yeah, I don't have maintenance on my car. That's a good idea. So consumers are the ones that are going to drive this. That's the difference this time. That's why you see people on both sides saying, this is a good idea because I'm going to save money.
Let's let David chime in, because David is sitting very quietly. David?
Well, I think that the whole infrastructure idea is really very important for us to focus on, because on top of the consumer issues are the issues of who gets of the jobs of the producers. Who is going to produce this Green New Deal? Who is going to be the people who are in the industry that's going to weatherize homes, that's going to retrofit weatherized homes? Who is going to be producing the renewable energy systems like solar and wind in particular? And we need to have a policy that will allow working people equal access to those jobs, because what we had during that old New Deal, in which the white supremacist Dixiecrats actually controlled all of the access to the 1930s and 40s work programs, Black people were cut out of those jobs. So we really need to have a very intentional policy about how we bring together the people who are getting the jobs. And there are lots and lots of entry-level jobs that in weatherizing houses, for instance, that could be done by people who have in communities that have high rates of unemployment. And there are synergies there by hiring folks who are unemployed to do the work of weatherizing houses. They are both getting jobs themselves and also lowering energy bills for people who they're doing the work for. So it's a synergy. It really creates a virtuous cycle.
Let's let Patrick answer that, David.
Yeah.
So David, I'm so glad you said that, because think about these jobs. These are not jobs I can do from India, right? Someone over in China or India can't really do this work. It's a very hands intensive. In fact, I'm in the solar business, and we've done solar in South Georgia where there's not as many rules and where there's electric co-ops. We do an entire field, hundreds and hundreds of acres of solar. And we look purposely for people that are in the area. We're bringing the expertise, but we look for people that are out of work in the area. I'm an out of work electrician, and I want to live in this area. I want to stay rural. Great. You know what? You're going to be working on this solar array for the next 20 years. You're going to go from end to end, and you're going to maintain this thing, and you're going to tell us what the performance is. You're going to fix stuff. We're going to train you how to do that. So we put people to work. That's the workforce you're talking about. So when you talk about weatherization, I was down at last November at the Social Equity Conference. I'm in the middle of all the historically Black colleges. Everybody's wearing hats like Tamara there. I'm the only one without a hat. And people were saying, hey, I'm listening to the about, oh, here comes the new green thing, and we're left behind again. We're not part of this thing. It's only going to be the wealthy, affluent people that get into this. It's going to be mostly white. And so when I had a chance to speak, I said, where are you guys? This is the heart of the historically Black colleges. Where is your curriculum? Do you have a curriculum today for these jobs? Do you have an energy efficiency weatherization program so that you're training up people to go out and actually work in your own neighborhood? Are you doing that? They're not. So now they're backing up and saying, you know what, you're right. They're saying we're watching this train go by. And I'm saying, get on the train. Be part of the train. Don't sit there and wait for some government program to give you something. You see the program, attach it to your community, make it part of your workforce. And we've been recruiting a workforce downtown. We've got some really good companies now that are owned by Blacks and owned by Asians that aren't very well off. and they are addressing this problem and trying to get into this business. My plan is to train them up and take them out to the dark corners of Georgia so that they can help train up the next level of people. So you're very right. Workforce is part of, if you look at the way the Green Deal is laid out, that's part of the promise. We're doing solar in Atlanta. Atlanta, as you know, is committed to 100% renewable energy by
Patrick,
the year 2035.
let me jump in real quick because we're going to wrap up here in like the next 2 minutes. But I just kind of wanted to say, where are the contracts for minorities? Where are those contracts available? Not just jobs, but are there actual government contracts where minorities communities are actually able to get those?
Yeah, there's government contracts today that are available, and this USDA money that I mentioned, it's available to the electric co-ops. Very few of the electric co-ops have a lot of their members. I mean, think about where they are. Take an area like Grady EMC, which is down on the Florida border. They lost 100% of their energy, 100% of infrastructure with the last hurricane. There's 2 EMCs down there that lost 100% of their. So who's going to rebuild that? So they do need those contracts. They need that government money. That USDA money is made to do that. It's made to filter in, and now the electric co-op has to ask for it. It's not a contract. But think about that. If I'm in the workforce, am I guaranteed money if I go do this work? Yes, it's backed by the federal government. It's USDA money. If I go do the work, I know I'm going to be paid for it, and I don't even have to market for it. The electric co-op is doing the marketing and saying, "Here's this group of homes that needs help. Go do it." So that's a great time.
Yeah. So thank you, Patrick, for joining us on this broadcast. I'm going to let David and Robby kind of chime in towards the end. We have another guest, and we have a full lineup of topics that we will be discussing. But Patrick, I want to say thank you for all that you're doing to spread the word about how this could be something very. It could make America great. Yeah.
What was
No, the phrase is "Make America Green Again."
Green, yes. Let's
MAGA.
yes.
MAGA, green. Green versus red. Yeah.
Patrick and I actually met along the way. Patrick was a candidate for the Senate District 56. So we've known each other for quite a number of years. So Patrick, as we continue to have this dialogue, I hope that you'll come back and continue to talk to us and bring us up to speed on what's happening with your efforts. So thank you, Patrick, for joining us on this broadcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely, guys.
Thank you.
Really exciting.
Yeah, David, I know you have a lot to say. I wanted to give you some room there to kind of chime in. Robby has a guest today that we're actually going to bring in. We have Egberto, who's always going to give us a political update nationwide. He'll be joining us in just a few minutes. But David, you were sitting so quiet, I was scared.
Well, you know, I wanted to make one comment about the Green New Deal. And that is to ask a couple of pointed questions for people who have been involved in environmental justice and the struggle around the climate crisis. Why is it that in the United States we use 2.5 times the per capita amount of energy than the most advanced wealthy countries in the world? In other words, Britain, France, Germany, the Scandinavian countries, even Italy and Spain use our energy use is 2.5 times as great as theirs. And I think that's a very important consideration for us to understand the dynamics of first of all, climate denial, of the resistance, because we keep on focusing on the big oil companies and coal. And we don't think about what is the mass base for this, in other words, the large numbers of people who are supporting, were voting for Donald Trump, who think that climate change is a hoax, listen to the crap on Fox News. And we need to think about that. We need to think about the fact that the whole infrastructure of this country, the suburbanization that took place after World War II and continues down to the present, the car culture and all of these institutional and infrastructural arrangements have created a kind of a way of life that and it's very, very much white in its culture and in the people who are participating in it. So I think it's real important for us to be aware of how we have to address climate denial is connected with this whole issue of racial privilege, and what it's doing is fairly clear. This is a clear example of racial privilege not being a benefit. I mean, this is at the point where it's not only not a benefit, it's going to destroy the planet. So people who are clinging to their privileges, of suburban car culture, are really, really undermining their whole environment. So I think this is very, very sketchy, but we really need to have a conversation that investigates that relationship between race, white suburbs, and the car culture, the private transportation system that we have in place, the automobile culture.
It's kind of like what's happening right now in Gwinnett County. I'm a resident of Gwinnett, and there's a referendum to expand MARTA. And I saw on the news, I think it was last night or night before, how according to the polls, there's more people that don't want MARTA to be expanded up into Gwinnett than do. And I believe those polls, first of all, aren't correct, because if you ask the average person that's sitting out there on 85, 285, and all these highways, they want MARTA. So you're right, David. And this would be a conversation I think we should continue to have. We're going to bring on Robby's guest. Robby, let's bring her on. Let's see where she is. Hi, Yvette. Good morning.
Hi, how you doing?
Welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes. Ms. Robby.
Thank you, Ms. Yvette. I want to thank you profoundly for being a voice for working class and employees. So please introduce yourself, and I'm going to ask you a couple questions just to get it going, but please introduce yourself to the audience.
Good morning. So my name is Yvette Avery, and I am a former airport employee.
And you've recently had a challenge in life. In a nutshell, just put it out there.
Yes, I was suspended and then eventually fired within the past 30 days from my employer.
Where did you work? And if you're comfortable sharing who your employer was, feel free.
At the airport here in Atlanta for Delta Airlines.
So at the world's busiest airport, right here in Atlanta.
Correct.
Where was it a surprise to you? Give us a little of the background. What happened?
Well, back in September, I was approached saying that I had a conflict of interest from my previous job, my current job actually, that I've been at for almost 13 years with UPS, given 2 weeks to choose, and eventually ended up terminated.
So you've been with the airline, specifically Delta right now. Obviously, you're not with them now because you've been terminated, but you were there how long?
7 years.
How was your record? Did you
Excellent. Never called in, never was late.
Attendance
was great.
So you've been terminated. I'm assuming, tell people about how that works. I'm familiar with it but tell people about how does that work? So you were approached, and what happens the day you're approached?
Just brought into the office. I'm thinking I'm getting accolades because I recently had a positive write-in from one of our pilots. And when I went into the office, I was told there's a conflict of interest, even though it was included on my application 7 years prior when I was hired, as well as on my resume. So it wasn't a secret that I worked for the other company at UPS, given the 2 weeks to choose, and then HR was eventually brought in 2 weeks later.
So thank you for explaining that. When I tell people how it works, what I mean is you walked into an office. Did you have anyone to help you, or were you alone?
No, I was alone. It was a station manager and a supervisor in the office already.
You're alone, and they're tag teaming basically.
Correct.
And when you're done with this conversation where you're alone with a manager in HR, what happens to you? Is something taken from you, and what happens next?
Yes, eventually, when I was walked out, my badge and my credentials, of course, were taken. I was driven to the parking lot and basically dropped off and left in limbo for a minute until I got the call.
When you say walked off, I want people to really understand this because I know so many people who this has happened to. What she's describing is the typical procedure when an employee is removed. Literally, you are brought in blindsided, alone, no representation, and your credentials are taken, your passwords are removed immediately, you are locked out of the system, and you are walked off property and left on the side of the road like an abandoned animal.
Exactly.
I don't mean that is no insult to you. I mean that that is the reality of how people are treated after 7 years with a quality record who discloses from the beginning of their application, and that is the reality of a right to work state in Georgia. And
Correct.
no one, and I applaud you for saying the company who it is. No one would think that this is how this company works, you know, and treats its folks. So give a little, do you think there might be another reason this might have occurred to you? Did some things occur that may be the reason you were treated this way besides a conflict that you disclosed 7 years prior in writing?
Yes, I'm currently working on an organizing campaign with the union, trying to organize the cargo as well as the ramp workers. So I wear a pin every day. I was handing out flyers, of course. They leave anti-union flyers in the break room and also play videos, anti-union videos in the break room all day long. So we're subjected to that. So I felt it was fine for me to be able to hand out flyers, you know, letting everybody know what the union is about.
Didn't you have an incident where you were passing out a flyer and another employee threw it and did something with it?
Yes, I did have one incident where I was sitting in the break room with the flyers and other employees, and one of the red coats threw away the flyer. And I asked him, why did he throw it away? He said he thought it was trash. And I said, well, should I throw away some of Delta's flyers? Because they have flyers out as well. So that's what happened with that issue. Nothing was done about it.
So this is legal in Georgia based on our right to work state. Tell people, because a lot of people believe in a wrongful termination, right? So tell people a little bit about what right to work actually means in the real world.
Real world, basically right to hire, right to fire. So you're basically at will. So at any time they can terminate employment, and at any time you as an employee could, you know, give up the employment. So nothing has to really be done. I mean, it could be you have on the wrong shirt for the day. It's just at any time you can be terminated for any reason.
So just to put this in perspective, in terms of an airport, security, safety, possible liabilities in an operation, what, in your opinion, does a right to work culture, right, where anybody can be terminated for anything, how does that impact safety? Like, do you think, go ahead.
I mean, because the way everything is handled or has been handled, it could cause people to become a security risk because you just upset their lives with no regard to what they have going on, them trying to take care of their family. So people could go the opposite direction mentally, you know, and take matters into their own hands, which is a definite security risk. You should treat the people with respect and, you know, treat people with human decency, especially when it comes to their employment.
Well, I guess what I mean is if I can be fired, walked off property, no recourse, no pay, nothing, my credentials are shut off, I'm thinking everything's fine, I haven't done anything wrong, I'm following the rules. Why would people come forward about safety risks if they can lose their entire living, you know, life, basically, their careers, if they come forward with something that nobody wants to hear about and now they're walked off property? I mean, doesn't that kind of click in an airport that we would have to have protections for folks who report dangerous conditions? Should there be some other, the other thing I want to mention, besides the union campaign, which there have been multiple campaigns at this airline, right? So the pilots are unionized. The executives have contracts, which in essence is kind of a union protection. And the executives are saying, you know, you don't need a union, yet they have protections. Who's not unionized? Tell us a little bit about who you were working for, what that advocating for, what that demographic looks like, and maybe in comparison to the other demographics that are protected.
Correct. So I actually worked as a gate agent. So I was above wing, and they do make it a difference of being above wing and below wing. Below wing is the ramp workers that load the bags on the aircraft, the cargo workers that also have cargo that goes on the aircraft. They are predominantly minorities, people of color. So they're treated differently because of that. And that's exactly why they need the protections versus our pilots who have the contract, who are majority non-minorities. They're not minorities, and they're protected. And we see it every day. And it's very, divisive at that workplace with where you are in the company as far as above wing or below wing.
What about the people who are also even in a subcategory below that? What about the caterers, the wheelchair pushers, the people cleaning the airplanes? You know, tell us a little bit about that.
They're in an even worse position. Most of them make less than $8 an hour, or around $8 an hour to clean the aircraft or to push the wheelchairs. So they're treated, less than on a regular basis. Some were even promised that they would have, parking decals so they could park for free. And that wasn't honored, where they had to pay just to come to work or try to catch the train, which is already difficult to get into the airport. So, given that added stress and monetary, where they have to spend their own money when they're not making enough to begin with, is a big struggle for them.
Given what you've seen, experienced, firsthand witnessed, what do you think when you see billboards that say greatest place, greatest employer in Georgia, when you see the airline sponsoring events for civil rights, knowing what you know and what you've seen and what you've just described, what is your thought when you see that?
Well, for me, that's very hypocritical, because Martin Luther King stood with the workers when he was assassinated in Memphis. That was his reason for being there. So it was very hypocritical of them to spend the money to open up MLK Center as well as the church on that day, because they're really not aligned with that truly. We have a lot of great people that work for the company, but the company at the top should really reevaluate and truly, if they want to align with what he stood for, allow the people to have the representation they deserve.
Do you think this is a safety issue for Atlanta? Do you think this could, given the airport and a safety hazard and the damage that could happen to the airport and the economy in Atlanta, is that something our elected officials may want to fully look into, investigate? And a secondary question, why don't you think people in Atlanta know this information, especially our elects?
Well, a lot of them, they definitely should be aware. But a lot of them are not aware, possibly because since Delta is such a big company here, they have their hands in a lot of our news media, who won't cover anything negative regarding them unless it reaches somewhere else, and they just kind of have to cover it. But it's a lot of people who are kind of in bed with the company, so they're not willing to speak out or speak up against any injustices that are happening there.
David, Tamara, is there anything you want to ask, add, elaborate on?
Yeah, I like to talk solutions, and I want to kind of bring it full circle. Yvette, tell me what it is you want to see happen. What would make that a better place to work? Like a solutions, because I'm sure it's not just one.
Well, the main solution would be to have representation on for the people on the ramp and cargo, because now not having a voice, not being able to negotiate benefits, not being able to retire because there's no pensions. Majority of the workers that are ready reserve, like I was not even offered healthcare benefits. So we need that in place in order to negotiate so people can live and be able to work safely, to be fully staffed and not work injured because you're scared to go to the doctor, or you can't afford to go because you don't have healthcare benefits, because the company doesn't offer you any. So I think organizing for them would be their best option at this point in time.
David, you're a union man.
Do you, Ms. Yvette, is there which union is organizing? Is there a group of unions now that's working to organize the airport, or is it one?
It's just one, the IAM, the Machinist Union.
Oh, okay, all right. And this is very disturbing for me to hear. You do have, as somebody who is doing union organizing, some protection under federal law, don't you? I mean, this is the National Labor Relations Act. It says that that union organizing is a protected activity, but of course, every employer has violated this, brazenly for the most part. But I'm just wondering how that dynamic has been working for you. I mean, the union is representing you now, right? I mean,
Of course.
in fighting this arbitrary firing that they've done, right?
Correct.
But
They are backing me.
What's that?
I say yes, the union is backing me.
Yeah, and the question then becomes, how long does it take for the National Labor Relations Board to have a hearing, and do all of that, right? I mean, because it could take years before they actually make a ruling.
Well, actually, in my case, the labor board, because I've already went that avenue, can't cover Delta because of the Railway Labor Act that we're under. So I have to go as far as a lawsuit when it comes to labor issues at the airline.
And that's why Delta wants to remain in Georgia. That's a right to work state, because their headquarters are here and the entire operation gets the umbrella of how Georgia operates. So when people are based in LA or New York, because the courts are not as hostile to employees, they can file in their own residency states. But here in Georgia, the courts align with corporate. And that brings us back to the gentleman who was on, Patrick. I'd asked him about, how does Georgia Power play a part in this? Well, this is parallel. This is no different. Yvette, what's next for you?
Right now, just trying to, get my life back in order. Continuing the fight, have appealed, and now waiting on that to pan out.
You're trying to get your life back in order, minus one salary when it's turned upside down.
Definitely. I mean, after 7 years, you've become comfortable with your life and how you can provide for your family, and that was disrupted within, a short period of time. So it's a lot to deal with.
Thank you for being so brave, coming on here, disclosing, putting it out there. A lot of people ball up, don't do what you're doing. And it's never going to change until we have people like you who are brave enough to come forward. Oftentimes when people are under attack or they're treated the way that you're treated, they try to become quiet so that the company will hire them back. And that I know so many people that never works. They'll drag this out for a year and it'll remain the same. But they have such hope and belief that this corporation is aligned with the values that they claim. And the reality is she has an employee number for a reason. And the reality is she's been treated this way. There's, what does that mean in terms of a union? Well, look what's happened to her. Look what's happened to her. So you've answered your own question, David. Even with the union here, and because they're not unionized, because the laws work against it, this woman of 7 years, model, and I know so many people like her who this has happened to. And it literally makes our city and really our national, because it's an airport and an international airport, we are unsafe because of it. Even whistleblowers are not protected, whether it's union advocates. And I know this company very well. I sat in training for 6 to 8 weeks. People are indoctrinated in this company to anti-union in the training, besides who they're hiring. And then on top of it, we've got a workforce of 24,000 attendants who are the initial entry point on the airplane for safety, unprotected. So they can't even report anything. I mean, they can, I know, because I was there.
David, you're a union man. Like I think your insight is so important right now.
Well, I mean, Ms. Yvette is doing the work that we absolutely need people to do, and doing it under the most vulnerable circumstances. And in corporations like Delta, there is a I mean, and you tell me, Ms. Yvette, if I'm correct about this, people are really afraid to confide in each other, to trust each other, to give each other the kinds of solidarity and support, because the company makes it so dangerous for you to do that and to work with people, work together with folks, because they want you to be dependent upon the hierarchy, on your hires up, rather than on the people that you're working with. Tell me if I'm right or wrong about that. I mean, I really think that there's. Go on. I don't.
I'm like, you're definitely correct. You hit it right on the head. Definitely. And
for you, unfortunately, your firing sends a message of fear through the whole workforce, and I really think that we need to stand up to that fear. We really need to help people get the courage to step out and speak out and rely on one another. This is solidarity. This is power with, as opposed to power over. I want to say something about, the higher paid workers, as you say, the above the wing workers. I think that they are torn between keeping a low profile, not talking, and realizing that they depend on all of those other workers below the wing, right? They're the workers who are maintaining the planes, who are loading the baggage. The baggage loading has to be done very, very carefully, right? I mean, or the plane is not the weight isn't balanced right. Isn't that the case?
That's true.
Everything else that goes into the functioning of the airport is done by folks who are either are the machinists and mechanics and inspectors, are they IAM? Are they organized?
The only ones are organized are the pilots. We have some dispatchers and fuelers, and that's all.
Oh, wow, that's scary. That's really scary. And I think you're absolutely right, because putting pressure on people to work longer hours when they are engaged in life and death decision making, right, is just really unconscionable, seems to me. People need protections. They need to have their the workforce both protected as individuals and also protected as a group, as a community. Because each of us helps others to make sure we're not making mistakes, right?
Right.
Now, I could be wrong, and this is just my opinion, no one else's. But what I witnessed and observed while I was there, and this isn't the only location, was an apathy, was a disconnect for the lower wage workers, a separation, maybe even racial undertones. I saw I saw something that was very Southern. When I was there, it was a discussion of the flag. And there was a lot of, these people don't want to work. When these people were like working for nothing in ridiculous hours in the rain, not getting paid anything. It was nonsensical. And it translates, it makes me question, because even the gentleman who was on earlier, Patrick, when he said, he was at AUC at this conference with solar, and why don't, in-town communities, you got to understand the vulnerability of folks. Like Yvette is actually fortunate because she had a second job. So she literally can sustain herself, not in the same manner, but not everybody has that. How do you work full time twice? Not everyone can do that. And what it happens is, because people are so vulnerable from generational divestment that actually went into the suburbs, to your credit, David, folks, good, Egberto's here. Folks literally cannot organize. They're not in the position, and the people with the ability to take those privileges and take those programs and run with them. Yvette, please come back. Please come back and follow up with us. We will continue to share your story, and I will do everything that I can to help you. We will connect you as much as possible. Thank you for your bravery.
I appreciate you ladies for having me on today. It was a great pleasure, and I will be back.
Thank you, Yvette. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh gosh, Deborah, Georgia. Oh my God, there's so much work to do. There's so much work to do.
This is a pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do think that we really need to consider the contradiction in people's situation. One of which is that they recognize, in the situation of people who are higher paid workers, they recognize that they are dependent on lower paid workers. At the same time, they don't want to. If you challenge them and you said, who keeps this airplane flying? Who protects your life? They know the answer to that.
They would answer, they're replaceable. I'm sorry, I saw it, David. I didn't want to believe it either, but I saw it. Not everyone. Otherwise, prove me wrong. Go stand up for your fellow employees. How do you watch someone make $6.50, $7 an hour in the rain, getting run over by tow truck with these cargo things, dying? They don't get anything in the courts. Their family don't get anything, and you're happy on a layover in a pool.
Yeah. Let's welcome Egberto to the broadcast, my fellow.
I'm just saying,
how's everybody doing this morning?
Hey,
Hey, things are great. I love the passion that I just heard that's going on right there. That is so important for the movement, But we have to turn the passion into action. But I tell you what, national news, the name of the game right now is socialism. That is what everybody is talking about. That is a new fear tactic that's going out. In fact, I'm here at Starbucks. I was just speaking to a woman whose son was a staunch supporter of progressive ideas, and suddenly, because of what's going on in the country right now, they went ahead and started talking about socialism, and he is picked up the mantra in thinking that what these guys are talking about is bad for him, even though everything that we know, it is good. We're talking about democratic progressive policies here is good for him. So one of the things that I want to say is we're going to have to change and start working on the narrative going forward to ensure that people are hearing the things that they need to hear relative to what's going to move us forward. If we take a look at the polls say that people want the things that those like us want, and somehow it's not happening, something that we have to work on, folks. Silence.
Yeah, no, I had everybody on mute. That was my bad. You're right. You're right. David, you want to jump in right there?
I think Egberto is absolutely right that socialism is on the agenda right now, but it means a lot of different things. I was listening to Bernie Sanders on MSNBC last night, and what he's talking about is not necessarily socialism in the sense of government ownership of the means of production, but of an expanded and extended welfare state. In order to do that, in order to implement that, we really need to have a strategy, and the strategy is about counterposing money power with mass movements and mass organization. And to do that, we really need to resolve the contradictions within the 90%. That is the racial inequalities that exist within our the vast majority of the people. So there are public opinion polls, Egberto, that you're talking about, where people are told, we need to redistribute income to people, to the lower income folks, in the country, to make things more equal. Everybody agrees. 80% of people agree. But if you use the word welfare, which is a code word that has been used to racialize that income redistribution, then the proportion of the positive responses goes way down. Obviously, because whites are thinking white is really what it comes down to. So I think that we cannot simply and I think that Bernie Sanders has a tendency to do this. We can't simply say everybody, all the 90% get together, without understanding that there are inequalities that we need to resolve among ourselves.
I agree with all of that, David. I do want to say something before my time is out, and that is that I want us. I would love progressives out there, all the different shows that are out there right now, to make sure to not cave into the belief, or as Robby was saying last week, not to fear the word, because of what they have us doing as Democrats right now is fearing the word, running from the word, running for what it really means. The fact that Webster Dictionary says socialism means controlling all the means of productions is a fallacy. That's communism. It's a difference. The definition in the dictionary is incorrect. We have to start. I think we have to get on top of the message, as opposed to allowing them to dictate the message. And when we control the message, we can then express to people what we want. In my humble opinion, of course.
And I think we have to educate so many people on what it is. So many people just really don't know, Egberto, what this is and why this is even important to them.
That is exactly right, Tamara. That is exactly what we have to do. And I agree with you 100%. And that's why your show is so important. And that's why all the subsequent shows that we need to put together going forward, I think is so important. So keep up doing the great work that you guys are doing out there.
Yeah, thank you. And you can find Egberto on Politics Done Right. It's www.politicsdoneright.com. He does a broadcast every single day. He is fighting hard for what is right for all people. So Egberto, we look forward to having you back on next week with the national political update.
Thank you so kindly, Tamara. Bye, Robby. Bye, David. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
David, we had a full lineup today. Woo-wee.
Yeah. Lots of things. I must say that I am really disturbed by what has happened to Yvette Avery. I think that this is the kind of thing that we really need to rally around, because somebody who takes risks like that should not be left out alone. I know she's got the protection and backing of the union, but for the rest of us, this is the true meaning of solidarity: is to fight alongside people who are the ones who are really out in front. And boy, my heart and my hat, I salute her. And and if there's anything that we could do to help with this organizing drive, I think we should be aware of it. That airport is a core, a concentration of workers in the Atlanta metro area. Organizing the airport would be a major shift in the politics and the politics of Atlanta, not just for those workers, but for everyone around them. So I think that's really important to keep in mind. And this is another area where electoral politics is not enough. We need to understand that electoral politics is not enough, and that getting organizing drives like this going at the same time as we're doing electoral, campaigns is critically important for shifting the power relations, because this is really about power. Those people in charge are not going to change unless there's power from below. And Bernie Sanders, I think, is right about that. And the Green Party and all of the other people who have been organizing for that end.
Good job, David. You summed it up perfectly, Robby.
Just to add to what David was saying, it's definitely something that impacts Atlanta, Georgia, but it also impacts national and global, because the legacy carriers have what's called a hub and spoke system, meaning they have a hub and they have spokes, or satellites throughout the country and sometimes even abroad. But that being said, what a lot of people don't know is that whenever there's a storm in Atlanta, and all these spokes allow people to commute. So people can't afford to live in New York. They can't afford to live in LA. So they choose to live somewhere they can afford and commute in. And that means that the workforce has to get in on this system of hub and spoke. So when we have a storm, that's why we have such a mess, because the airport, literally they can't get workers in. Because does that make sense in terms of bringing the employees in? And because these issues internally, right, in the operation are so problematic, but people can't discuss them, they don't get fixed. And so the executives are insulated from this, because even the managers to some degree are at risk. Of course, that being, or everyone is, with the exception of the pilots and those who don't have a contract. It's just that some people have more risk and more liability than others. That being said, it impacts national security and global security for that matter.
And we're not going to stop talking about this. That's why Egberto's right. We are on the right page. We are we're waking up a lot of people. And I want to thank you both, Robby and David, for speaking truth to power and being willing to, do this broadcast every week. No matter what, we're here. I was tired last week, y'all, but I'm here today. So I want to thank you both for all you do to shine the light on these issues that affect all of us right here in Georgia. You can find Robby on social media. Her Facebook page is NPU Resident Public Forum right here on.
That's a community online forum.
It's a community forum. Explain it, Robby. I'm saying it all wrong.
No, you're good. I do have a public profile. People can find me, no problem. But we created an online community collective group for Southwest Atlanta and Southside communities, and it's called the NPU Resident Forum, meaning we're trying to take back some type of voice for the community collective in our NPU structure, the neighborhood planning unit in Atlanta, which is compromised. That's it.
Thank you. And you can find David on Acknowledge the Divide, always talking race, racism, and race relations. David?
Yeah.
This is a great show.
Yeah. And let me just say that speaking truth to power already knows the truth. We got to speak truth to the folks who are around us, who need to understand that power relations are either power over or power with. And we need to, it's in our interest to fight for power with, to act in solidarity with one another. So that's just my little additional take on speaking truth to power.
Awesome. And again, I am Tamara Johnson Shealey. You can find me at TamaraShealey.com. We will be back next Friday, same time, same channel right here on Facebook, 11 a.m. every Friday, where we speak all things Georgia, Atlanta politics, and David always speaking the truth, right, David? Have a great day, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.